Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
I have my passport and I can't wait to get it renewed. You know, the place, the people, the culture, it's amazing. So let's talk about why travel is so important right now. On Zoom, we have Indonesian travel writer Agustinus Wibowo. He has always had a strong interest in the question of identity. As a descendant of Chinese immigrants, it is a question that has fundamentally shaped his perspective on the world and has taken him to many different corners of the earth. This year, he published a book about his travels, Jalan Panjang Untuk Pulang, The Long Way to Go Home. Please make him feel welcome. David Allan-Petale. Now, he is a writer based here in Perth, and his debut novel, Locust Summer, was shortlisted for the 2017 Australian Vogels Literary Award after being drafted in a villa in Ubud and completed while travelling Australia in a caravan with his family, who are also here today. Hello. Now, David spent years working as a journalist with the ABC, the BBC and Al Jazeera, so thanks for coming.
Pleasure, Christine. Thank you for having me. Hello.
Oh, I reckon we get into it. What do you think?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with Agustinus. Can you hear us? To warm up. Look, many from WA have travelled to Ubud, but few have lived there. You not only did that, you wrote the first draft of Locust Summer there. What was that experience like?
It was extraordinary. In the end, it was extraordinary. It didn't start that way because I came to Bali as someone, I think the only Australian in the history of Australia to have never been to Bali. So when I arrived in Bali, I was a bit cynical. I thought, we're going to Ubud. I know it from Eat, Pray, Love. I was thinking it's just going to be a lot of trust fund hippies and a lot of overblown things. But within about a day, I pushed through that. And, within 2 weeks, I was at the yoga barn doing ecstatic dance. And it was a wonderful experience because my wife and I had traveled around the world for about 3 or 4 years consecutively before that. And so we decided to come back to Southeast Asia to be closer to our families and maybe do a cheeky trip down to Perth every now and again. But we just loved Ubud so much that we decided to live there for, 3 and 4 months at a time. And then we'd go off and do some more travel in Southeast Asia. And then we always came back to Ubud. And that whole time I was just writing Locust Summer because what a magnificent way to write. Getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, watching the sunrise over the rice paddies, silhouetting a gung. There I am writing with some matcha tea and just warming up to my work. And I'm not going to say the work was any good, but it was a wonderful way to actually do it and to push through a lot of the fear that I think you have in writing the first draft of something. So being in this very supportive place, I heard Ubud means medicine, it means healing. So that's a beautiful thing to be amongst. Yeah.
Easier to write there?
Yes,
Did it help your creativity?
I think so. I did hear that it's like a meridian line of creativity. There's another place that I went to called Katoomba in Australia, where I worked at the National Writers' House, Varuna. So that was another place like that where I just had time and space to write, but that was a writing retreat. It was very dedicated. In contrast, Ubud was, we were living our lives and going traveling and exploring Lombok and all the different areas of Bali. Mic just cut.
Do you want mine?
Yeah. Thanks. So, yeah, we were just exploring all the different parts of Bali that we could, and I was fitting writing in. So getting up very early in the morning to do it, but just having the option to do that is so good. And being in a place that is so supportive of creativity. I mean, we would go out every day and there would be the flower offerings just everywhere. And that's an extraordinary piece of creativity, the devotion that you can show to the gods to do that. So I constantly had that example to follow. And everywhere you go in Ubud is beautiful and historic, and the layer upon layer upon layer of experience that you just connect to. We did. Yeah, we really did. Maybe some of them are watching today in Ubud. They run a classroom, it's called Classroom of Hope. It's a charity that builds schools across Southeast Asia. So we got deeply involved with them, and we still keep in touch with them. Also, shout out to Ubud. It's not running anymore, but it was the hub in Ubud. It was the place where we called ourselves digital nomads. It's where you could go and work on your entrepreneurial business or something like that. And that brought together Westerners and Indonesians to collaborate together. And that was just a really wonderful space to go. And so we keep up on social media with a lot of people and still contact them. So getting in the mic.
Thank you. Wonderful. Oh, look at that. Well, I'm very jealous, firstly, and I bet you can't wait to go back. Agustinus, have we got you now? Brilliant.
Hey.
We have you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. Look, I can't wait to talk to you about your experience. Can you take us back to 2003 when you were a uni student in Beijing? Because this is not your first experience of a pandemic, is it?
After the 2 months of lockdown, I decided that I need to travel to see the world. So I traveled all the way to Pakistan. And back then, Afghanistan was just experiencing the post-Taliban era. And in 2001, after the US invasion, the Taliban was taken down. And people told me that going to Afghanistan was quite easy, so I applied for tourist visa, entering Afghanistan in 2003, and I immediately fall in love with the country, and it started my faith with Afghanistan. So yeah, it's also connected to the coronavirus. Yes, Christine? Okay. So, yeah. Cannot hear. Sorry, Christine, I cannot hear you at all here. Sorry. Sorry, I cannot hear you at all here, so I don't know what. Yeah, should I talk here? Oh, okay. Yeah. I use the mic and I think the sound will come to there. Yeah, so I can talk without the mic, yeah. So what I fell in love with Afghanistan in the beginning because the country was totally isolated. When they are talking over there, if I use mic. Yeah, yeah, the country was isolated, so
Australia, but that was before the pandemic. And now our plans for our second child, we'd like to go to France and Spain and go around in a van and do that kind of trip. But to not be able to travel has been disappointing. But I know this sounds like pretty small beer compared to actually what a lot of other people are going through. But it is really a very important thing to myself and to my wife that we be able to explore the world and see the things that we are seeing. And just as a writer, that's a really important part of the process. I discovered that's how I like to write. That's the best kind of thing. And it does sound like a massive indulgence. Oh, I was in Cuba the other day, and all that kind of stuff. But being away from Australia allowed me to see Australia with fresh eyes. And I think that's what writing and reading does. We can become so used to seeing the sunset or the beach or being in our own houses, but it's kind of like when you move your paintings around, you see them again. Travel allows you to come back to your homeland with fresh eyes, and I think it's the same with reading, and it's the same with writing. It allows you to step out of yourself, have a new experience, but then circle back to where you came from, and then you see all the things connecting. And so writing about the Wheat Belt, which is it's an otherworldly place, it's an incredible landscape. I'm doing that in the jungles, and I can't just look out the window and see that landscape. I have to conjure it. And so when I came home and we did some traveling around the Wheat Belt, it was nice to see that I hadn't over-egged the pudding. I had to imagine it. I couldn't report it. So that was an important part. And not being able to do that with, at least on a outside of Australia sense, is pretty frustrating, but we'll get there.
How have you found the shift from reporting to writing? I mean, you were a journalist for so long and it's a very different style. How did you learn to loosen up?
I joined a writing group. I did when I was in London. I had some terrible news this week, actually. My writing teacher, Ardella Jones, died of cancer very suddenly. She taught me everything. In London, we were part of a group called Chalk the Sun. My wife and I were walking down the street one day and Ardella said, "You look like creative people." That's sort of how she spoke. She was quite witchy. And she lured us into her writing class and basically broke down everything that I'd ever learned as a journalist. Journalism is all about, facts, being driven by reporting and what you can see. It's not about what you feel. And so Ardella broke all that down for me. And I think the most important thing she said was, you've got to believe your own make-believe. Now, with journalism, you've got to believe your facts. And facts are immutable. Whereas writing, you are the master on the page. And and you can do whatever you like, as long as it's authentic and as long as it's real and as long as it comes from a deeper place. So.
And you've been able to combine the two in Locust Summer because you've got the facts about harvest.
Right what you know.
Yeah, that's right. And you've also got a great narrative. So, Agustinus, do we have you there now? Ah, brilliant. All right, wonderful. Let's go back to Afghanistan if we could. Your first book, A Blanket of Dust. What do you think we are missing by not being able to visit and explore Afghanistan right now?
With Afghanistan was the rich history, and this country is a multi-ethnic country. There are dozens of ethnic groups, and they were part of the Silk Road, and they have a huge contribution to the world civilization. Afghanistan is located at the crossroad between South Asia, Persia, Central Asia, and China. So in Afghanistan was center of the Buddhist civilization before, and it was in Afghanistan and northern Pakistan where the first Buddhist statue, the Buddha as a human form, was started, this culture, and then it spread to China. China received the Buddhism from Afghanistan. So this is part of the deep historical and civilization contribution that Afghanistan gave to the world, and many people were not aware about that. And traveling around Afghanistan, what I really love is the rich culture, and also the culture of mehman nawazi, or the hospitality. So people will think, you know, like, oh, this is the country where only war and terror, but in fact, majority of the people are living peacefully, and they are very active in receiving guests. Even if they don't have anything at home, they would share the last meal for the guests. And this idea of contributing and sacrificing for the guests is very deep-rooted in Afghan culture. I think this is the most important thing as well, but for people to understand the issue with Afghanistan now. This is not a monolithic country. There are many different groups, many different cultures, and we cannot see Afghanistan just only from the conflict. And there are also the normal life is happening there, and you can. What I really appreciated about Afghanistan is the culture of survival. I worked as a journalist in Afghanistan for 2 years. I stayed total for 3 years. And in Kabul at that time, the bomb blast happened maybe twice, once in 2 days. So if 1 week passed without any bomb blast, we would be scared, because usually the next attack would be extraordinary. So, but because people living with these bomb blast attacks at daily basis, it's becoming part of their life. And what I realized about Afghans, they can make peace even with this kind of situation. Some people make very dark jokes about the reality. They're saying that one man going to the market buying a head of goat, and the seller, he asked the seller, what is the price of this head of goat? And the seller said, oh, it's 50 Afghani or $1. And the buyer bargained, oh, it's too expensive, how about 20 Afghani? And the seller became very angry. Oh, are you crazy? This is a head of goat. This is not a head of human. So this kind of dark jokes are how they make fun of their reality, and they cope with the life. But yeah, I think the thing that we need to learn from the Afghans are their love to the land, the love to the nation, and the love and the strong survival capabilities. Thank you.
Dark humour for coping. I like it. I think you need it sometimes. So I suppose, yeah, are you still in contact with anybody from Afghanistan? Agustinus, what's it been like over the last? All right. So look, harvest is happening as we speak. So, farmers are out in the paddocks. They're hoping that the temperatures don't drop. There's no frost. They're able to get yield. It's a nerve-wracking time. Wives are back at the homesteads making, muffins aplenty. And so this is the perfect book to be reading. For those who haven't lived a life of grain, understanding farm life is like learning a whole new language. So how did you approach this text?
Well, I'm not from a farm. I'm from the northern suburbs of Perth. So I don't know all that much, but I did work on a farm, a friend's farm. I was a journalist in Kalgoorlie, and my mate Alex would always speak about going home to his family farm and working the harvest. He was the good son. So I thought, well, that sounds like a really, really interesting thing to do. I'd love to join you. And he was like, what? You'd like to come on the harvest? I took 3 weeks off work. Instead of going to Bali, I went over to Coonamble in New South Wales, and I worked as just a general hand, doing absolutely everything that I could for this work crew, and it made a man out of me. It genuinely did. I came there pasty. I'm still pasty, but King G shorts with the crease iron in them, brand new from the
R.M.
packet.
Williams boots, yep.
Absolutely, looking very schmick. The cockies took one look at me and said, West Australian, a sand groper. Here to teach us to grow wheat, are you? And I'm like, no, I'm from Greenwood. I'm really sorry. But by the end of that, I had fantastic memories and fantastic stories that I locked away, and I thought, there is something here to this, because it was romantic. That's a strange thing to say about work on the land, because I think it's something that really annoys people from the country is when city folk romanticise the land. It's like, no, it's really hard out here. This is not Who Wants to Marry a Farmer. I mean, there's Who Wants to Marry a Farmer and then live 35 years of your life doing hard yakka season after season. That's what it's really about. So when I went back to journalism after doing that experience, and I had new eyes. I had new eyes when I was speaking to people in the wheat belt, speaking to people in the Great Southern. I was a regional journalist for the ABC for a long time. And I just absorbed it. I just gravitated toward it, the way they spoke, what they did. And it just all went into the memory bank. And then when it came time to write Locust Summer, I had the research ready to go.
And your friend must have thought you were crazy to volunteer for harvest off your own back. Look, it's been a hard season, lack of seasonal workers. I know there have been a lot of phone calls to family for help. What was the most challenging part of writing this book, if I can ask?
Getting away from the technical, making it hurt. Getting away from the plot itself is kind of baked into the story. You have the beginning, middle, and end with the harvest. So you have this spine of events that have to happen. The father is sick and dying, so you have those peaks and troughs. And I think I was hiding within the technicality of that too much and not going to where it hurt. So I switched the story up so Tony Jordan, who's on the cover with my cover quote, I had an old draft that I was trying to work out, and it had lots of flashbacks to the father and that kind of thing. And Tony just said, David, flashbacks are for cowards. You have to sit with this story and confront what's in front of you. And then I realized, hang on, this is about the mother and the son, because they're the ones who are alive. And I have to sit with this. And so that was really hard to go into the emotions of that and then dredge up a lot of things in myself to actually relate to that and make the story alive. I had to believe my make-believe. I had to really inject it with my own blood. I know that sounds terribly dramatic, but that's really what you have to do. And you have to get away from the safety of the facts, the safety of that, I guess, that journalism aspect that I had to it. I had to actually write.
That's a good point. And have you known anyone who has had dementia? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
My grandfather. So that's who the book is. The book is actually devoted to him.
Tell
For
us about
Palmer.
him.
Well, I say for Palmer, who best educated me, and he was an absolute scallywag. He was like Magwitch in Great Expectations. He'd knock on my parents' door when I was about 5 or 6, and he would just say, "Hello, Mr. David, would you like to come with me?" And I'd say, "Where are we going, Palmer?" "Potluck." And it could be anything. It could be going to see Perth International Arts Festival movies that really a child should not be watching, like Das Boot, the 5-hour director's cut, stuff like that.
the opera, the Whitbread Round the World Yacht Race, the Royal Show, where we would always have to drink a litre of full cream milk. His aim in life was to educate me before the Americans did. That's what he did. And then he took me around the world twice. So he was an engineer. So these were all like tax write-off trips. So we would do these trips to the USA and Europe, but we would visit like horrible factories. So that, sorry, he's long dead, so the tax man can't get
in trouble.
That's
No,
fine.
I like it.
Yeah. But he was great, and that gave me this. I'm a kid from Greenwood, but I had this horizon lifted for me by this wonderful man who, he was, like I say, he was a scallywag. He really was. He did not give. He didn't care. He snuck us into the Louvre by pretending that he was half blind and that he couldn't read the things in the gift shop. So he got my sister and me into the Louvre, and then he noticed that there was like a little door. He said, "Go, you've got half an hour before it shuts," because his theory was no one gave a shit after, there's half an hour to go. So that's how we saw them, all the treasures.
So knowing all of that, what was it like to see the end? I mean...
Yeah, it was really horrible. And it was really hard because Carmen and I, toward the end, when he was really quite far gone, we went to London to live. And so I wasn't here when he passed. And that was dreadful. But at the same time, the last conversation that I had with him, he basically just said, "Go, give him hell, do it." Because he had his life chosen for him by his father. His father made him become an engineer. It was on Selby Street, if anyone ever remembers. It was GEO Monkhouse. It's not there anymore. It's a block, but he was forced from the age of 12 to go to work to be an engineer. He wanted to be an architect. It explains the Europe trips and all the culture. So when I told him I wanted to write, he was like, "Yeah, okay, you do that."
He sounds like an amazing man. And I'm sorry you had to go through that, but yeah, it has helped with your writing. Agustinus, it's your turn. Are you there? Oh, you beauty. Wonderful. All right. Look, I would like to ask you a personal question as well, if I may. In Ground Zero, your dying mother lives vicariously through you and your travel adventures, I guess you could say. Was this a transformative experience for you? How would you describe it?
And in the last few days of her life, I was thinking about how to travel together with my mom, not physically, but mentally and spiritually. So I sit down next to my mom and I read for her my diaries from faraway places, from the places that she even have never heard about. And I told her one story by one story, just like Shahrazad in 1001 Night tried to prolong her life by telling stories. By telling the stories, I started to realize that travel is not only about physical, but it's also a journey of memory and a journey of spiritual, an inner journey, the journey to understand what the real meaning of life is. And facing the death of my mom was maybe one of the biggest tragedies that I had ever had in my life. And it took me almost 2 years to totally heal myself from the pain. And one of the ways was by writing this book, by writing all of the memory and contemplating the real meaning. So if I want to connect it with the topic of the theme of Ubud Writers Festival this year about self-reflection. The process of book writing is also a self-reflection. And by reflecting life, we understand that there are 3 parts of journey that we need to take in our life. The first is the physical journey. The physical journey makes you learn to see the world, to see the outside world, and to learn new things. This is a very important part. And if you don't travel, you would be like what we say in Chinese as a frog in the bottom of a well. And the second part of the journey, which is important as well, is the memory journey. The spirit, the self-reflection first started with the memory to remember what really meaningful for us and what is really changed us. And the third part of the journey is the inner journey, is by asking the meaning, questioning the meaning of our experiences. And by understanding the meaning, we would understand our life, and it's eventually the process to understand ourselves. So people said if you would get the great happiness if you know yourself, but knowing ourselves is very difficult. We travel, we go everywhere with ourselves, but how many of us really know ourselves? It's just like our eyes and our mouths are located on the same face, but our eyes cannot see our own mouth. We need reflection. We need reflection to see our own self, and the reflection is seen from our outside world and our reflection to ourselves. So I think this is the whole process of self-reflection that I learned from writing the book about the journey with my mom. Thank you.
That was a beautiful answer. I wonder, oh no, we have to go one for one. He might be gone again, so I'm going to come back to you, David. We are going to have audience questions very soon as well. Just looking at the time, it's 2:30. We have 15 minutes left. So if you do have something that you would like to ask Agustinus Wibowo or David Allan-Petale, then let us know. We've got a roving mic. Hannah is going to come over and see you. Yeah, and the floor is all yours. Now, I do want to ask, I know Locust Summer was only published in, what was it, June or July this year? You have 2 kids, and who am I to ask about your next book, but how's about it? You've started it, I hear.
I have. I started it back in 2015. So when I'd done the first draft of Locust Summer, I stuck it in the bottom of a metaphorical drawer, just a file on the old MacBook, but started something else because you've got to let your stories percolate a bit. And so I started this other book that I've now written the 4th draft of. I just had some time at John Curtin's house in Cottesloe. He was Australia's World War II Prime Minister. This old clapboard house with wraparound verandas, probably the cheapest house in all of Cottesloe. $2.5 million average there, but I got the chance to do that through the National Trust, the WA National Trust, and just had a while of a time finishing the story. And it's set in World War II. I don't want to tell you too much, but remember Palmer? Well, his father was even more of a scallywag. And I found out how they made their money in World War II. Yeah, so I'm writing about that, and then I'm taking the history of the period and kind of twisting it a lot. It's like a speculative history piece, and it's dark humour. It's very interesting. It's very different to Locust Summer. You know, a lot of people say you should just write Locust Winter, Locust Autumn.
Has it?
Keep going.
Everyone likes a set, come on. Has it been easier or harder to write this time around? I mean, it's your second book. In theory, it could be easier, but you haven't been able to travel, so.
No, it's been harder in the sense that I'm not as free to do it. We have 2 small kids now, and they take a lot of our time, and so
fair.
Yeah, and that's great. I don't mind. I mean, like putting your story in a drawer is good, but also living your life is good. We're not in, this isn't engineering. This is art. It's supposed to take time. I heard a writer the other day say, that this is the season that I'm in, and you just do a little bit when you can, and other times you do quite a lot when you can. So I'm enjoying the pace of this. I'm enjoying the season that I'm in now. And it's easier in the sense that I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and I'm seeing the cul-de-sac before I enter it, and I avoid it. But then there's, traffic still. There's to keep the metaphor going.
Still potholes.
Still potholes. There's still, and
when you say mistakes,
drivers.
What do you mean, David?
Writing the wrong part of the story, going on different emphases, different.
when you write a story, you tell yourself the story. I'm humble enough to say I'm not the master of this. The story is the master of me, that I follow it, that it reveals itself to me only through draft after draft after draft, and consideration and periods of thinking and reflection, and also working, with different readers and editors who have different ideas and say, hang on, what about this? Because, it's literary fiction. It's not a like a mystery thriller or something like that, where you have definite structures and definite things that have to happen. So the story revealed itself to me over a long time through making a lot of mistakes, through going down paths that perhaps I shouldn't have, but on reflection, I'm glad I did, because I saw something nice and I took that back. So maybe they're not mistakes at all.
I like that. Do we have any questions? Now is your time, everyone. I'm sure you've read the books, you've been thinking. Perhaps there was something that's been dying to get out. Oh, wonderful question from the back. Start us off. Very good. What's your name?
Kaya, Emily. I'm from Kanyang Budja, Great Southern Region. My dad's a farmer.
Where does he farm?
Kojana.
Oh, Koji, very nice. Wonderful. Good to have you here.
Peter, I really like your story about going over east for the harvest and, turning up in your shorts with the pressed edge on them. I'm in the middle of two other sisters, and we had a whole repertoire of how we would treat city people coming down to visit us. And my question is there a character like that in the novel? Or if not, can you tell us a bit more about how you were treated as the city kid from WA?
Sure. I was treated wonderfully, as long as I worked. I was fortunate in that the first time I rocked up wearing my immaculate King G outfit, revealing myself as a soft-handed city boy from the northern suburbs, the header harvester, the brand new John Holland, broke down. The teeth snapped. So we had to change every single tooth on the header harvester, the thing that goes round and round and chews the wheat. The bit that cuts the wheat when the thresher comes through. And I volunteered to do that. I was like, this is divine intervention. I have to do this job. And it was the worst job on the farm. So I did that in the baking heat for about an hour. And then after that, I was golden. After that, it was like, this guy's all right. But my friend said that to me. He said, roll your sleeves up, do whatever. There's no job that's humiliating. Go get the lunches, go get the lunches. Go get the fuel, go get the fuel. And at the end of that first day, we all went back to the pub where the power cut out, and we attached the generator on the back of my mate's dad's ute and fired up the generator and ran the pub off the Jenny, which is in the book. And we got free beer for that whole night. And then people were, doing bush poetry, and it was like I'd stepped into something else. But I could tell that they were kind of messing with me a bit. But that's okay. I think as long as you were prepared to work, you were okay.
You clearly earned their respect. What do you think about that, Emily?
Yeah.
Does he need anyone for harvest? Is that you doing? We're sending him down.
I'm a bit old now. But no, I was going to say as well, Rowan, my protagonist, doesn't do that. He is from the farm, but he doesn't want to be there, and he's being very difficult. And so that's why half the battle.
Definitely. Any questions? Any more questions? Especially for Agustinus. We've got him here live from Indonesia. You're in Jakarta, aren't you, Agustinus? Oh, you're in Ubud now. Ah, wonderful.
Hey, Agustinus.
Right. Now, I would really love to ask you what you're working on now, if I may.
Always very strong in me is what really connected Indonesia as one country. And to understand Indonesia, I think I need to travel along the borders of the country to see the country outside in. So I started from the Papua New Guinea and Indonesian Western Papua province, which is, if you see the map, it's a straight line between Papua New Guinea and West Papua. And I traveled from the side of Papua New Guinea. And it was quite a dangerous trip for me because, like Papua New Guinea security is not in the best, and it's not the best in the world. But and along the borders, there are many also refugees camps, Western Papuan refugees camps from the Free Papuan Movement people. So as Indonesian traveling in this area, it's quite dangerous because they were fighting against Indonesia. So I had to hide my identity sometimes. I had to pretend myself to be Chinese, but then I got being accepted and I stayed in some of the OPM camps over there. And learning, by staying with them, I learned the history of West Papua that we have never learned in Indonesia because some of the histories were not even taught, not even written in the books that we use, and never been published in newspapers. So it was surprisingly to see the different perspective of the movement. And after that, I realized that this movement is not only rooted in West Papua itself, but it's also connected to the foreign, the organizations in foreign countries. So I decided to go to Holland when there is a government of some government cells of Western Papuans. So I met the Minister of Foreign Affairs of West Papuan movement in Holland. And by visiting Holland, I also understand that there are many Indonesian diaspora in Netherlands who also have different sentiments with Indonesia. Some of them still missing, some of them is hating. So then it dig me deeper and deeper to understand what is the idea of nationalism among the Indonesian diaspora. So I met this group of the Republic of South Moluccas, which is a movement that is almost forgotten in Indonesia, but it's still quite active in Holland. I stayed about 2 months with the Moluccans people to learn the history of them. And then I also went to Suriname in South America, where there is a huge Javanese diaspora there. Suriname is about 18,000 kilometers away from Java, but surprisingly, I still speak Javanese language in Suriname, and they were still maintaining very strong Javanese identity, and this is just part of my project that I would like to figure out the fragments of what is creating Indonesia and what fragments are making Indonesia as Indonesia.
Right, that unwritten history. That's brilliant. We've got a question from the audience. What's your name?
My name's Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Very simple question for both the writers, but maybe Dave, if you can start. Growing up on the main streets of Greenwood, what were the books that allowed you to travel?
Thank you for your question, Andrew. Well, I think the one that really took me out of Greenwood was East of Eden by John Steinbeck. That's an enormous novel, and the way that it was realized and the way that he transported me to the Salinas Valley in California. And that was like a gateway drug to all kinds of other stuff. You know, that was Tom Wolfe, Graham Greene, Ernest Hemingway, all the sort of American and English heavyweights, if you will. But then that also led me toward writers like Elizabeth Harrower, Kate Grenville. I read to escape, but also read to transcend. I mean, The Power of One by Bryce Courtney. I used to read that once or twice a year sometimes, because the power of that story, the simple power of that story just took me away. And Chronicles of Narnia, particularly The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, having that read to me by my nan. I still have an enormous library at home where most of my childhood books are, and their spines are cracked, and I still pick them up and just have a little read every now and again, because like I said earlier, I think reading, and like Agustinus said as well, the journey is about going out and then coming back, that homecoming. So reading takes you out, and then you come back and you go, oh, wow, this is my life, and where I live is pretty good. And I think something that's been really nice about having a book out with Locust Summer is people then come up to me and tell me their stories. And they tell me, you know, how the book hit them and what stories that ignites for them.
Yep. Augustinus, which books let you travel?
Islam identity as a political movement grows in this country. And this book helped me a lot in shaping my way in seeing the world. I really adored the way of V.S. Naipaul observing the places that he visit. He had a very deep observation, and he had a very strong opinion as well. But his opinion was also somehow quite subjective, but somehow it's also very powerful. So the way of him observing the reality shaped my way as well, and it became my standard of quality of travel writing. I also enjoyed the Ryszard Kapuscinski, because he, especially the book called Imperium and The Last of Shah. I think Ryszard was also doing very well in the so-called literary journalism and writing journalism, but in a very poetic and literary way. And it's also helped me to understand that, yeah, journalism can be very beautiful as well.
One word answer, last question. Where will you travel to as soon as you can? Where are you going next?
Ubud.
Yep. And Agustinus, you can't say the same thing, so
I'm serious.
where would you like to go next?
I think my next would be East Timor, because I want to see how's life in the country that already been separated from Indonesia, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to visit the country.
Thank you so much for joining us, and to our audience online and to our audience in front of us. And David, thank you so much for coming in. It's been brilliant. And you can stay because there's another event after this, Poetry and Politics, but just come downstairs for a little bit because you're going to be doing a signing, right? Yeah, you can come have a chat, come have a photo, you know, maybe get him for harvest, who knows? All right, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you. See you, everyone. See you, Agustinus.
See you.
To thank